Welcome in, guys, to the Full Force Fathers podcast. We are so glad that you are back. We appreciate it each and every time that you hit the listen button on our show. And today is a milestone show, Dave. Today is episode 26, halfway to a year.
It's hard to believe, man. I really cannot imagine that it's been 6 months since we started. It doesn't feel like that at all.
Oh, dude, you want to talk about the fastest 6 months of my life? It's been this 6 months. To record a show and put it out every Tuesday like we have for the last 6 months, it is absolutely crazy to me to think that, okay, we talked about this dream in January, my epiphany that I had out in the field, and then all of a sudden to start. Now, what are we in? It's September. So when did we actually start? Do you remember when our first episode was?
I think our first episode was in March.
March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Yeah, September would be 6 months. So I'm counting on my fingers for those that are watching on YouTube. It's been since March. Yeah. So it's a long time. It's a long time. 6 months, Dave, is a long time to do anything. And to do it consistently, that's the key word, and that's the theme of today's episode. But before we start, the famous number 26s. Did you get any famous number 26s, or am I taking the floor on this one?
I mean, I don't know how many great number 26s there's ever been. I came up with two from the football world, Adrian Peterson.
Yep, that's great. He's an all-time great.
From the Yeah, he is. And from the baseball world, Darryl Strawberry.
Yeah, and I came up with another one, a more recent football one, Le'Veon Bell, who was a really, really good running back for a while, and then he kind of got that big contract and fell off. And then historic football, Rod Woodson wore 26. And then I'd say baseball, I don't know if this information's correct, but Wade Boggs, I thought, wore 26. If I'm not mistaken, you're a Red Sox guy. Am I right or am I wrong on that?
Oh man, I don't remember, to be honest with you. He might have been, but I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think Wade Boggs was number 26, if I can remember correctly.
Okay, right, you're probably right. You've got a pretty good memory with that stuff.
And he's a Hall of Famer. So if we're stacking numbers, yeah, Adrian Peterson is a first ballot Hall of Famer as a running back. He was unbelievable. I remember watching him when he came out of Oklahoma. Whoo-wee, boy, could that boy run. A couple of off-field issues, the whole beating his kid thing.
Boy, you're not kidding.
Yeah, that beating his kid thing, but other than that, he's
Yeah.
So let's.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that is a big one. Maybe I shouldn't have glossed over that. But his football, we're judging totally on football talent. His football talent was unmistakably good.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that I don't know. I thought would potentially break Emmett's record. I'm glad it never happened, but it just also goes to show you like how good you need to be for such a long period of time to attain those types of records. Because Adrian Peterson was amazing for a very long time. It still didn't reach that mark.
Yeah, but I think if I'm going to play devil's advocate to that response, I'm going to say those days are so long gone. Emmett's record may stay forever because in this world, especially in the NFL now, it is a win now league, and NFL contracts, especially for running backs, are few and far between. And that it's almost like baseball now, how baseball has specialists, right? The guy that comes in for one batter and gets out. Every team now utilizes multiple running backs. So to think that someone's going to come along and break Emmett's record, there's very few Derrick Henrys left in the league that are these 300 carry, 3 down workhorses. It just doesn't exist. Emmitt Smith, you remember as a Cowboy fan, Emmitt Smith was on the field for every down. He never came off the field. Now guys come on for first down, then there's an entire playbook for the backup running back. So the game has changed, And listen, I'm not saying that record will never be broken, but there is a very good chance that Emmitt's record sits for a long, long time.
Yeah, and I think trends will change, right? It's a very pass-happy league right now, but who knows? It might change back to a run-first league at some point. But yeah, I hope it stays forever.
I know you do. And if we're talking about consistency, I know he didn't. Dude, Emmitt Smith talked about like how consistent. Even when he left Dallas, didn't he go to Arizona to finish his career?
Yeah, he did.
And, we probably not want to talk about it. He got some cheapo yards to add to his total when he left. But, I mean, consistently every year in and year out, he was the best.
Yeah.
Maybe minus the Barry Sanders years, he was the best running back in football for 10 years in a row.
Yeah, he was incredible. And you think of some of the things he did. I mean, when he came out in the second half of that Giant game after dislocating his shoulder and running all over them, that dude, you don't see that anymore. And maybe it's stupidity back then, who knows? But I mean, you don't see that anymore, and I miss it in the NFL.
Oh yeah, it's speaking of dislocated shoulders, my mom just dislocated her shoulder last month, and boy, let me tell you. To think that Emmitt Smith came out and played football after listening to my mom, my poor mother with her dislocation. Emmitt came back out and played in the game, got hit again 1,000 more times in the game.
Yeah, got slammed to the turf.
And those old turf fields were the worst.
Bro, yeah, they didn't have the little pebbles in them to like soften the blow when you hit the ground like they do now. They got that rubber cushion that's in there.
Oh yeah, dude, those turf fields now are just so perfect. They used to be like playing on concrete. I remember they used to talk about Veterans Stadium where the Eagles used to play, and guys would blow their knees out every year on that. It's like playing on a concrete field.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, enough about Emmitt Smith. We got going down a little hole there because we started talking about number 26s, and it spawned off to Emmitt Smith in football. But let's get into our Bible verse, Dave. This one was you selected today's Bible verse. I'm going to read it. And then let's digest it a little bit. And it comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58. Therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain.
Yeah, this is such a great Bible verse because I think it really speaks to consistency. And consistency is so key to everything that you do in life, whether that be your faith, your fitness, your finances, or anything else that you're doing. Consistency is key. And this talks to it. This talks to if you're steadfast, if you're immovable, if you continue to do the same things, the work that you do is not going to be in vain. And there's going to be positive gains from that. That's what I took from this Bible verse. Yeah, no, it makes me think the hard work that you put in is it's not for nothing. There's gain in it, like you said. There's gain in it, and it's for something. And in terms of consistency, let's talk about consistency. I'll let you start. Let's talk about the show. Let's talk about 6 months. Let's talk about every Tuesday for the last 6 months and what it's going to be like. Let's let you start here. Yeah, so 6 months ago we came out with our first podcast, and when we started, we said, this is the starting point. This is our starting point, and we've been consistent with our podcast for the last 6 months. So my question is to the listeners of our show, what have you been consistent with? We talked day one about starting somewhere. Wherever you're at, that's where you start, whether that be in your fitness journey, your financial journey, or your faith journey. Where did you start? Where are you today? What gains have you made? Where have you been most consistent? Where have you been least consistent? Where are things that you need to work on in the next 6 months? So it's time, I think, that we look back on the last 6 months and say, all right, what did we accomplish? What have we gotten out of this last 6 months that have put us in a better place moving forward? And where do we need to continue to work to continue driving and being full force and living that lifestyle? Yeah, no, you bring up a good point there. And where to start, obviously, was episode 1. I think it'll always be my favorite episode. There may be more popular episodes. There may be more I don't know, controversial episodes, however you want to say it. But that one was our beginning to our consistency journey on this Full Force Fathers path. We decided to, hey, we're going to do a podcast. We don't care what anybody thinks. We're going to do it every week. We're going to be consistent with it. But I like how you framed it there. You asked a question to our listeners. Have you been consistent for 6 months? Have you not?
have you learned anything? Have you taken anything from the show? And if you were consistent, you probably look, feel, and act a whole lot different than you did 6 months ago when we started this show. And I hope you've listened to every episode because we've been consistently putting them out. But I hope you've been, even more though, I hope you've been consistent in whatever journey it is. The finance journey, Dave can speak of a little bit more. The fitness journey and the fitness part of consistency is very hard. As we were talking pre-show, there's so many people out there that work out for a day, take 2 days off, or work out for a month, take a month off. And it's very difficult to stay consistent. And from a financial standpoint, Dave, what are the most, what's the hardest part to stay consistent in your finances? What would you say is the hardest part?
Well, I think the hardest part is watching your spending, your daily spending, because it can sneak up on you in a hurry. Like we've talked about before, if you stop at the store, you pick that up, or you don't make a plan, you're not planning for the week, you just end up spending money aimlessly. So the way to combat that is by doing a budget. We talked about a budget early on in our podcast and how important that was. So have you been doing a budget every month? If you have, you've probably seen major gains in your financial stability so far, and the money that stays in your account and that you're able to use to pay off debt or save or whatever it may be. And if you're not using a budget, if you're not consistently doing it, you're not going to get any better at it. And those things are going to continue to bother you because you're not going to have any way to maintain, the money in your account without just randomly spending it. You have no tracking mechanism for that and nothing to hold you accountable to it.
Yeah, I like two things that you said there. To be better, you have to be consistent. You can't get better at anything unless you're consistent with it. And the other thing is, you can make a lot of progress in 6 months. I mean, I can only imagine in 6 months, if unless you lost your job or whatever happened. But let's just say, I'm going to go down the finance hole with you and ask you some questions. Let's just say 6 months ago, you have all your debt in front of you, like we said, and you lay it out. Your income is consistent. Your job's the same. Nothing's changing on that front. I mean, how much progress do you think you could truly make? Is it, you think you're 10% better or 10% into that chunk of debt? Where, is it too hard to put a number on there? I mean, how consistent could you be?
I think it's difficult to put a number on it because everybody's in a different position. So I think you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. But yeah, you can make significant gains in your financial plan in 6 months. I normally tell people it takes about 3 months to get your budget honed in to a point at which it's kind of like, all right, this thing's churning. I got this down. This is how much I spend here. This is how much I spend here, and getting those numbers accurate. But you can start making progress the first month because it's the first month you've ever done it. So you have something to hold yourself accountable to. And if you have a spouse, you have that person to hold you accountable with it as well. So it is, though, on a case-by-case basis, because some people like me, I had $60,000+ in debt and 50,000 of it was on credit cards, right? Some people only have $10,000 in debt or 5,000. Maybe they got a little bit on a car, but you can make serious gains. And if you're being, diligent with it and you're being intentional and you're staying consistent through the months, through the weeks, through the days, because it's a daily fight sometimes, you can make huge progress. Because once you know your numbers, like we talked about when we said just start now, knowing your numbers, where you're starting from, you can make huge progress on that by making little minimal chunks every single week.
Yeah, and you're 6 months closer to the end goal. So no matter how long it takes you to get there, if you had just started episode 1 and now we're talking about being consistent 6 months in, if you had just stayed consistent for those 6 months, you'd be that much closer to the finish line. Now, let's use you for an example because you like to talk about it. You were $60,000 in debt. How long from when the time you said, all right, I'm into Ramsey, I'm doing Ramsey's book, his plan, to the end? What was the time frame on that?
It took us 14 months to do that. Now, I took on a lot of overtime during that stretch that helped really ramp that up. And we lived bare bones. We really did go rice and beans during that stretch of time. And it made a huge difference because we weren't a huge difference because, we weren't spending money on things that weren't important. We weren't going on vacation. We weren't going out to dinner. We weren't doing anything for fun. I mean, every dollar that came into the house went towards paying off the debt because we had that mission. That was what we wanted to do. And it took us 14 months. So, I mean, if you're hearing this now, and maybe you have made great progress over the last 6 months, look at, depending on how long your track is, you could be almost halfway there. Yeah. Maybe you're further along than that. Maybe you're a quarter of the way there. But you know what? You're better today than you were 6 months ago. And if you haven't started, if you thought about it 6 months ago and you're like, yeah, I'll get to it. Time is going by regardless. All right. We're 6 months further along than we were then. Wouldn't you like to have said, yeah, at this point, I would have liked to have been 6 months further along, closer towards my end date and my financial freedom date. So if that's you, if you didn't start, you wanted to, it's 6 months later, start now, because in another 6 months, you will be 6 months ahead. Yeah, no, it's all about consistency. And you also mentioned you picked up a lot of overtime there, and that's important. People need to realize you're going to have to consistently do crappy things and pick up extra shifts and eat not, the way you want to eat, however the case may be. Don't skimp on your diet. I'm not telling you to do that. But you're going to, you got to be consistent in all areas to make such the extreme change where day 1 to day 14 months, you paid off over $60K worth of debt. So it's all about those consistent habits with your money, being cognizant of what you're doing with your money every day. But I love how you said, start with that budget. When you start with that budget, that's what builds the consistency. Yeah, it is. That's the starting point. You have to do that. Otherwise, you have no way to track expenses. We don't have the days of checkbooks and you're balancing your checkbook every month. So you need to budget, because that gives you the starting point. You get to see where you are. You get to see how much you have positive income coming in, how much you have in expenses going out, and then you got the difference. And what you do with the difference is your choice. But that's where we're talking about consistency. If you're consistently taking that difference and putting it towards your goals, you are going to make big, big strides.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're going to be in the same place 6 months from now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And now to shift gears, stay on the consistent topic, I want to talk about consistency with your fitness a little bit. As you know, Dave's the money guy. If you've never listened to the show, Dave's the money guy. I'm the fitness guy. And consistency with your fitness it's the name of the game. If you're not consistent, you're not going to get the results. Whether you're losing 1 pound or you're losing 100 pounds, or you want a 6-pack, or whatever your goal is, you want to eat healthier, you want to lower your blood sugar, lower your blood pressure, whatever, any kind of health related symptom of fitness. We'll use it as a broad term. In fit, consistency with your fitness, like I said, it's the name of the game. If you're not consistent, the results aren't there. Dave can attest to that. When you do 75 hard and you're consistent, he's in the best shape that he usually is ever in. When he's not, you slack, and that's the thing. I wrote down 3 things here. When it comes to your fitness, the best 3 ways to stay consistent, start with getting a routine. Get up at the same time every day. Have a routine. Don't go through your days, fly by the seat of my pants. Don't wander through them aimlessly. Do a little bit of work. Don't do a little work. I work from home and I still have a routine. I still have a consistent schedule that I follow. I have my schedule for the day that I need to get done for work, and I build around that. But be consistent with a routine. Get up at the same time. All high performers, I don't care who you are. There's very few out there, high performers in fitness or finances or whatever in business, that don't get up early. Get up early. Get out of bed early. I made that post on Instagram the other day, and I got so many comments back. And people are like, you're right. Thanks for the push. Because it really does. It starts with when you open up your eyes in the morning. That's where the consistency starts. You have to be consistent throughout the day, every single week, every single month, every year when we're talking fitness. All right. So get a routine. That's the first thing with your consistency and your fitness. Get a routine. Start with getting up at the same time every day, and then you move on from there. The second tip that I like to put in for fitness, and this is not an end all be all. Get an accountability partner. Dave holds me accountable. I hold him accountable. Maybe we do it a little differently. I hold him accountable in the fitness side of things. He holds me accountable in the finance side of things. All right. Get somebody that you want to do the work with. All right. It's a lot easier if you have a friend or a family member or a spouse. Andy and I don't work out together. That's a story for another show. That's just not our thing. But get an accountability partner. Find someone at the gym. All right. And say, hey, man, I've been seeing you here for the last 3 nights at 4 o'clock. Is this part of your routine? Because I would love to work out with you or whatever, just to keep me on my toes. All right. Finding that person makes it so much easier. I know Dave for a fact will attest to this. Knowing when he calls me at 5:30 in the morning and I can yell at him or make fun of him or ask him what he's doing makes him get his ass out of bed and go around the block because he knows there's somebody else there. If you don't know that, you're like, all right, whatever, dude, snooze on the alarm because I ain't got to worry about nobody calling me. Snooze on the alarm. I don't feel like it today. That's the number one killer is when you stay in bed too long. Get out of bed earlier, okay? Get an accountability partner. And then the third thing that I think is huge in fitness, especially for people that are just starting out, mix up your workouts. Don't do the same thing all the time. There are things in your life where you need to master the monotony of the mundane, okay? I am a master of monotony. I do a lot of the same workouts, but I'm not looking for a fitness journey goal. I'm not starting off. But the majority of people that are looking to make a huge change physically or from a health standpoint, mix it up. Don't do the same workout every day because you will get bored. And when you get bored, you slack. And when you slack, you fall off. Mix it up. Run one day. Walk one day. Do a workout with a partner one day. Ride a bike. Go to the gym. Be consistent with the time that you work out every day, but you don't always have to do the same exact workout. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. This for me was where I think I've made big strides this last 6 months. Has been in, in the consistency aspect of fitness and working out, running, even walking, rucking, all those different things. I've never had a stretch of time for this long that I've been as consistent with it. I started right after Christmas actually doing it, and I've been on my feet every single day, and I do mix it up. I can't run, every single day. It gets boring for me. My legs start getting tired. So then, I'll ruck one day, or I'll walk. We go for a walk every night, and Casey's my accountability partner with that. Every night, all right, we look at each other. Ready? Let's go for a walk. Yeah, sometimes it's late. Sometimes after dinner, we're tired. It's been a long day, but you stay with it because you have that accountability partner. And that has been the biggest change for me this last, 6 months with consistency has been working out. I still have areas that I want to work on and be better at. But that's one that I've excelled at and have been so grateful that we've continued this show because that's been part of the accountability too, is knowing like we've got this going on. I've got you. I can call you. You keep pushing me, and that helps.
Yeah, and everybody that listens to this show is an accountability partner. I'm your accountability partner. Be accountable to listening to the show every week, or take the tips that we give you. Or I use everyone that listens to the show as accountability for me to keep being consistent in everything that I do every day. I have to. You guys hold me accountable. You guys, as the listeners, hold me accountable to hit record and make sure Dave gets a show out every single Tuesday. All right. So you may not think you're holding us accountable because we're just guys talking into a mic and record an episode every week, but it keeps you guys are what drives me to hit record every single week and put a show out consistently every week. Anything on that, Dave?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is. The consistency of doing this show has been great for us. And we could chat all day long. Quite frankly, we do chat all day long most days. But putting it to camera, sitting down in front of the microphone, has been great for us to be able to continue to spread our message of living a full force life and staying consistent on the financial side, on the fitness side. We want to be your accountability partners. So if you need someone to bounce ideas off of, or you got questions, whatever it may be, use us as that resource. That's why we're here. That's why we do this show. We want to make a difference. We want to help people live, a life that has purpose and that they feel proud of. And that's why we're here. So use us as an accountability partner.
Yeah. In accountability, consistency with the full force lifestyle, we can't forget about the third F in the full force fathers, which may be the most important one, is your faith. Being consistent in your faith it's hard to do. There's ups and downs. There's trials and tribulations of life. It is hard to be consistent in your faith. One day you are, thank God I got this job. And then the next day you're like, why me? why God, why me? So it is very hard to find that balance when it comes to your faith. And I tell Dave this, and I tell everybody that I know, pick up a Bible, pick up the good book. It's the world's number one bestseller. It is literally a blueprint to life. If you follow the principles of the Bible, it's going to be a good life for everybody, not just for you. So start consistently talking to God. Maybe it's praying at night. Maybe it's praying when you wake up in the morning. Maybe you talk to God in your own way when you go on a walk in nature, or however it is. Be consistent with it, because he's there. He's listening. He's watching all the time, and he's always there for you. So if he's consistently there for us, then we need to be consistently there for him. I read my scripture every morning. It's part of my morning routine. It keeps me consistent in my faith. And I read, and I feel like I understand something differently or learn something new every day in the Bible by reading it. So going to church every Sunday, maybe that's what your consistency you need. You're lacking a little consistency. Maybe, because some people need a little spark. They need church. They need it. They need to hear it from somebody else. Maybe somebody can't sit down in a room in the morning and read the Bible. That's okay. Maybe you go by going to church and listening to your priest or your pastor or whoever is in charge of your mass. Maybe that's how you feel more connected, more faith-based and consistent with your faith, by going to church every Sunday at 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or whatever time it may be. What are your thoughts on consistency with faith, David? Are you becoming more consistent in your faith? And maybe how have you done that?
Yeah, I'm starting to become more consistent in my faith and picking up the Bible every day. That's something I've done in the last month and a half, is, started to read the Bible some every day. And that is an area that I'm trying to be more consistent. Like we said, where have you been consistent and where do you want to be more consistent? That's one of the areas I want to be more consistent. So I've been working on that. Getting into the routine of going to church. That is a big thing for us. That is something that we're trying to be more consistent with. And we still have a long way to go with that, but it's part of the process. Got both the kids signed up for religious education. That starts in a few weeks, and that's part of the consistency too. That's helping them to learn their faith and understand their faith more, so that they can be consistent with it as they grow older and learn more about the faith. So it's an area that we're working on, but I do feel like I've made strides over the last 6 months, but I still have some, big strides to make there.
Yeah. You brought up kids, and that's another thing for us. We are fathers, first and foremost. We're fathers, and every child is going to interpret it differently. For example, my 9-year-old, Caroline, my difficult, thick-headed, ADHD off-the-wall child, my middle child through and through, she enjoys church the most. Are we going to church tomorrow? Every Saturday. What mass are we going to? You would scratch your head and say, Caroline, you're the one that wants to go? And Finley, who's 4, is like, I don't want to go. It's boring. So every child, obviously 4-year-old sitting in a pew, it's a little different. But every child is going to look at it differently. Madison, and this is something she's done recently. I read the Bible every morning. That's part of my routine. But every night now, when we tuck Madison in, she will read a verse. So she's currently reading Mark. And every night she'll read a verse or two. Now, it's going to take her a long time to get through Mark. And her 12-year-old brain probably isn't going to digest it the same way that my 36-year-old brain is going to digest it or interpret it. But once again, with the Bible, there's no right or wrong way to interpret it. You're going to interpret how you feel, what it makes you feel like, and what your thoughts come from Scripture. But, she writes in her journal. She thanks God before she goes to bed at night, and she reads a little bit of the Bible. That's a big stride for her. She's becoming more consistent at before. There was a 6-month, 1-year stretch where we didn't go to church every Sunday because of transitions and things like that, where now she's doing it on her own. It wasn't forced. There's no force there. She's now doing it. Caroline wants to go to church every week. And Finley, she's 4. We're going to let her come along nice and slowly and come around to it when she wants to. Because if you asked me a year ago, Caroline wouldn't have never been the first one to volunteer to say, are we going to church tomorrow? Well, I want to make sure we're going, So my kids, 3 different ages, 3 different outlooks, but like I said, when it comes to that, it really is to each your own.
Yeah, it is. I remember when I was a kid going to religious education, it wasn't something that I was excited to go do. I'm not going to lie, cards on the table here. I always looked at that night and I was like, oh my God, I got to go to religious education. And I see that in Kendall and Bryce, they get Like, oh my God, we don't want to go there after a full day of school. But the interesting thing is every time I pick them up afterwards, I'm like, all right, how was class today? And they always have something positive to say about class, that they had a good time, that they learned something. So yeah, while it might seem like, they talk a big game, they don't want to go, they don't want to do this, they are getting something out of it. And that's always wonderful for me to see and hear when I pick them up, because it allows me to realize that something is sinking in there and that they are taking something great out of it, because it is a great experience that they get to go through that with their friends and teachers and really be involved with it.
Yeah, and in full disclosure, like you said, cards on the table, you didn't like going to CCD. Well, that's what we used to call it back in the day, catechism. But my dad used to force us to go to church. Yeah. 7 o'clock mass. Are you kidding me? As a 13, 14-year-old kid? 6 o'clock, my dad be waking me up on Sunday morning, 7 a.m. mass. And guess what? You're going whether you like it or not. And listen, at this point, I am forever grateful to my father for that, because as I've grown in my faith, now I wish my kids would get up and go to a 7 o'clock mass with me. If there's anything that is an inconvenience for me, it's my kids want to go to 11 o'clock mass. Like, what? 11 o'clock, middle of the day? And it's like, wow, so we're trying to find the middle ground, the 9 or something, because there's no way they're getting up for 7, because as you guys know, Finley sleeps till 9 o'clock every single day. But, I'm forever thankful to my dad for making me go to church at 7 o'clock.
Well, if you want somebody to go to church with you at 7 o'clock, Bryce can go with you, because he's always up and raring to go super early. So he could be your church buddy at 7. Are
you kidding me? Bryce will be if there was a 5 a.m. mass, Bryce would be ready to rock and roll for a 5 o'clock mass. We used to, one interesting church thing. We used to love it.
Really would.
We used to love it. Christmas time, right? Jesus' birthday. We used to love it when there was midnight mass. And that was the coolest thing in the world, because my dad would take us to midnight mass. There was always a midnight mass. I don't even know if they do them anymore. I think they do them like earlier in the afternoon or Christmas Eve or something like that. Maybe they'd still do it 10 o'clock. I don't know if there's actually a true midnight mass anymore, but we used to love it. That was like, we used to take Christmas Eve. We'd go to church at midnight, then go home and sleep for like 3 hours and wake up and make and see presents.
Yeah.
I mean, that was always fun.
That's a good way to shorten Christmas Eve and just get right to the good stuff.
Oh yeah, it was always fun though. We always had great experiences at church as kids. And CCD, the good thing about CCD is most of the time it's kids that you go to school with. We did anyways. We grew up in small towns, so my religious education class was the same kids that I was in school with every day. So even if you didn't want to go, you still were there with your friends.
Yeah. Yeah, so was mine. It was the same thing. So we used to enjoy that aspect of it, because it was all the same group of people. It's a little different out here, as you know. I mean, people come from all different areas that come to the church. So you're not with like the core group of people. Like, it was the same people in the same class who just bounced from school to CCD.
Yeah.
It was great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And out there, yeah, for sure. St. Mark's is a big church. I mean, that's one of the most beautiful churches, but it's huge and they fill every mass. So there is a lot of kids. And as you know, like you said, Tucson's a transient city. Like, a lot of people come and go. It's a pit stop along people's journey in life. But church is fun. I think if you make church fun, it's the kids will enjoy it more, and it helps them start on their consistency journey of being involved in the church, whether that's religious education or volunteering or food drives, toy drive, all that stuff. Being consistent in your faith, starts at a young age for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
So, anything else we got to talk about today, Dave, on consistency? Anything you want to touch base on consistently before we head off into our book review here today?
No, not really. Let's get into the book review. I think it's a good way to wrap up our consistency. We've been consistent with the book reviews too.
Yeah, we have been. And today's book review is How to Make Shit Happen by Sean Whalen. And Sean Whalen is an interesting character. I like him. He's not everybody's cup of tea, but I like Sean Whalen. If you don't know who he is, he's the founder of Lions Not Sheep, which I'm sure you know what that is, in Utah. And this book is really good. How to make shit happen. First way to make shit happen, Dave, is be consistent. Okay, so it's make more money, get in better shape, create epic relationships, control your life too now. And what he does is he does Core 4. Now, Core 4 is a program out there that I don't know who the creator of Core 4 is, but the Core 4 are very important topics. And I'm going to open up the book here and just get to the Core 4 really fast for you and go over it while we are still on the show. So your Core 4 is your – hold, please. I lost my page now. Son of a gun. Where is it?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, can you believe I lost my page? I had it bookmarked here, and now I can't find it.
You don't have it memorized? I can't believe you don't have it memorized.
Well, I could have it memorized, but it's power, passion.
That's right.
It's your body, your relationships, the mind and the spirit, and business. So he puts it as power, passion, purpose, and production. He puts them as 4 P's, but it is the Core 4. And it talks about being consistent with your body. You gotta have a good engine, right? Your legs carry you around all day long. Your relationships. I've heard from many people these days that relationships are the new currency. That's how you're going to do the best in life, is to have the most fulfilling relationships out there. The mind and the spirit, that takes your faith involved, and then your business, your work side of aspect. Because listen, Dave and I are not just podcasters. We are full-time dads and we have full-time jobs. So you got to make sure you're good in your production. But the Core 4, read this book. It's really cool. He's got a great story. He is a Mormon. I don't think he's a practicing Mormon anymore, but he was a Mormon, grew up in the LDS church, and made it big in real estate and house flipping and all that good stuff. And then everything went south. Obviously, the crash of 2008 and whatnot, everything went south, and he actually was suicidal. And he's a great, by the way, whether you like him or not, if you like his politics or not, you like his posts or not, the dude he's a stand-up. He's a great father. If anything, if you get anything from him, he's a great dad. And this book will, it does teach you how to make shit happen, how to become better in all aspects of your life. But he's got a great story. He was suicidal at one point when he had lost everything and got divorced. And, the opening part, I don't want to read too much of the book, but the opening part of the book, he did have a pistol in his mouth. He was ready to end it, But now look at him now. He's fought through it. He's learned to live life happily and following his passions and his pursuits like we all should be doing. And here he is. So How to Make Shit Happen by Sean Whalen. Go get it. It's a quick read. It's not a very thick book. It is a quick read. So for those that are looking to continue on where you're at, go pick up that book. I could talk about it all day long, but I mean, not Cam Hanes type talking about it all day long, but I could talk about it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, you're getting pretty close to my level of Cam Hanes talking about Endure there.
No, I've probably read this book 3 or 4 times because it is such a quick read, and I recommend everybody reads it. It's a really good read. Endure, I could read 100 times. Speaking of
course you could.
Speaking of,
while you're running up a mountain.
Yeah, Cam Hanes did just get his first buck of the year. For those that follow him or don't follow him, he just went and got his first buck of the year just 2 weeks ago. So go check him out on Instagram. I'll continue to plug his Instagram page, shameless, every week.
Of course you will.
Anyways, Dave, that's episode 26. We appreciate you listening. Take us on home.
Everybody, thank you for listening. Continue to like, share, comment on the show, and submit your feedback. Ask your questions. Use us as your accountability partners. That's why we're here. We hope you enjoyed the first 6 months of this show. We are going to stay consistent. We'll be back for another 6 months of great content for you all to listen to. So we look forward to talking to you soon. Get out there and live the full force life.